You're like,
Good morning. This is Senate Transportation Committee. It's Friday, March 22nd. We're still talking about H868, the transportation bill. Today we have the Agency of Agriculture's weights and measures folks in to talk about a section of the bill that deals with electric vehicle charging and regulations for that, section 23. So, Mr. Beck, you can tell us what you think of that section and the requirements that it's asking upon your agency.
Yeah, thank you so much. And so, did you reference section 23? Was that specifically what we're discussing today? Okay. And I'm here just to talk about the program, the EV testing program. Also, if you folks have any questions on where we are with the weights and measures, program. I believe I spoke with this committee a year ago in regard to some of those issues. The weights and measures program is charged with regulating, inspecting, testing commercial weighing and measuring devices to make sure they're accurate and correct for the public, but also to provide equity in the marketplace between competing businesses to make sure that everyone's on the level playing field. And we do that for gas pumps and scales and package weighing and then prices on the shelf and everything else. I did want to talk a little bit briefly in regard to our program and where we are on that. This is a new and evolving program. There's been no regulation in regard to EVs in this manner ever. And it is a new, this is not a new program for us. It is a new device addition to our program, as we would have some of the other weighing and measuring devices that we regulate.
so can I just ask, those regulations in the APA, through the APA process, or are they just industry standards that are established by NIST that you like? I'm just wondering
Absolutely.
The extent to which we need to do something legislatively as opposed to what you would do administratively to respond to what is obviously an evolving market.
Yeah,
it might be more than EVs. It could be something totally unrelated.
Absolutely. And let me just reference our law and where those regulations come from. We have out of Commerce Title IX, Chapter 73, Weights and Measures Laws and Regulation. And by reference in those, we adopt by reference, for example, the federal standards in this handbook, 44, tolerances and specifications for weighing and measuring devices.
I hope former Senator Ash is listening, because NIST is right there in terms of the source of that document.
Absolutely.
And he visited the NIST office.
Yeah, Gaithersburg. I was down there a month ago, and I spoke with someone from that office this morning for 20 minutes.
He went to the Golden, Colorado.
Golden what?
In Golden, Colorado.
Oh yeah, so the one in Boulder. I think of Boulder, but yes, 2 campuses, one in Gaithersburg, one in out west in Colorado. Yeah. Very, very interesting work there. Anyway, we by reference, we adopt this. There's an EV code, specifications and tolerances for EV meters. It is fully enacted. It was a temporary code until a year and a half ago. Now it's been made a permanent code, which means that states that adopt this can enforce this.
So basically, we reference that. So as it's updated, we don't have to make statutory changes. It responds to those.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Living, breathing document, and it changes. States do have the option if there's something in here. Every weights and measures program is a unique program throughout the country. It's the state's responsibility to operate weighing and measuring programs, and they do have the option to put carve outs if there should be something in here that is objectionable or it doesn't work for a specific state for certain reasons. Vermont has some specifics on the maple syrup industry that other places don't. Maine, for example, does for seafood, and they have some add-ons or carve outs and so on and so forth. So by reference, they are here, fully enforceable for AC level 2 charging, level 3 fast charging. The tolerances are not applicable. Currently, there is a start date of 2028 for that, while NIST and the industry works on traceability on those meters and those standards. However, it's moving very rapidly. I can foresee the traceability being established before that and having this updated. the earliest, possibly 2025, but maybe, more like 2026. Okay. And then the method of sale laws and regulations is the same idea by reference in Title IX, Chapter 73. The state of Vermont does not adopt everything in this. We adopt certain parts and aspects of this. Unit pricing, method of sale, packaging and labeling. And we're working on NTEP also this year for uniformity between the states. And this part has to do with the method of sale on how the electricity is sold to people who are buying it at a charger. And for example, it needs to be purchased by the kilowatt hour. It has to be disclosed. Places can have an additional parking charge on that, but the customer has to understand what they're purchasing and why. So you would ideally have disclosure on X amount of kilowatt hours being purchased. If there was an add-on fee for parking, that would be a separate charge. Or there are a few other potential charges that I'm not that familiar with, fees maybe or something else. So those are the linkage and where the laws and regulations and the authority come from Weights and Measures.
So do we need section 23?
So, no, this is, if we want to cut to that and address section 23.
I don't think we do.
No,
It
we
seems
do
like
not.
There's already a structure in place.
There's
There's federal standards, which we adopt by reference.
Absolutely.
That's currently in place. This is just adding new. So I wouldn't think we would recommend anything that isn't consistent.
We were going to
Be additional. So for example,
Do we need something additional?
well, the question is, should these folks listed here look into that and see if there's anything additional that should be done that would maybe make it more of a better experience for the driving public if they're charged? Like, do we need to say what other data needs to be displayed, or how big it needs to be, or how it's displayed, or something like that? I'm not sure. My understanding is that the Agency of Transportation thinks it's needed, but they're not here today. So,
Well, I was just wondering all right, so this is sort of wrapping around, but based on what the responsibility of the Agency of Ag, it seems like that is really, unless we have some reason that we wouldn't want to accept what those.
right. Well, we're not talking about not accepting the NIST standards, and that's all very clear about how you're measuring a kilowatt hour. But
So I guess my question is it's giving the responsibility for the Agency of Ag in consultation to do this. And I'm just wondering, this seems to be not so much about the technical aspects, but more maybe charging for parking or notice or whatever you're talking about. So I'm just wondering why the Ag would be the buffalo on this.
Yeah, well, we were going to respectfully ask for section 23 to be removed from this, and we're in agreement that this is not needed, and that this would actually hamper and hold back our program from starting to do some work in this area. It's going to be new work, and we're going to have to feel it out and move forward. We're ready to move forward in regard to this. And I would also say in regard to, if you have questions regarding price transparency or posting of price or anything else, I would just encourage you to look at the method of sale law and regulation in this, because it does address a number of those issues. And a lot of that work may already be done, and you're welcome to look at that and see if it's sufficient for you folks and what you think. But it does cover a lot of those concerns as far as the charging, what needs to be on a sales receipt, price disclosure, and posting. It even goes into roadside posting if people should post the price.
and did the Agency of Ag give that testimony in the House?
But I've spoken a number of times in regard to all of this and provided links to our laws and regulations to the Agency of Transportation, and I've spoken to them in regard to some of these issues.
Our committee upstairs.
The House Transportation.
Let Steve speak. Absolutely, Steve.
You can be, just identify yourself.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much. Steve Collier from the General Counsel of the Agency of Agriculture. So we did not testify in front of the House Committee. However, we did speak to AOT after. I spoke to Michelle Boomhauer after this language was adopted. And after talking to Michelle, both AOT and the Agency of Ag agree that we don't need section 23 in the language. Michelle Boomhauer told me she was going to talk to the House Chair about that and would also talk to this committee about that. We already have an interagency committee that discusses all of these issues. We absolutely need collaboration with AOT, with ACCD, with the other entities to discuss how we're going to begin enforcement. We really want to also make sure that the state is only investing money in equipment that will meet the standards. And so that's something that AOT and ACCD are investing a lot of money in. And we want to make sure they're purchasing equipment that meets the standards so it's not a waste of money. So AOT and our agency are very much agree that we need discussion. We're going to be doing a very education first outreach for the enforcement because we really just don't know what's out there right now. We want to make sure it's accurate, but we're also not going to be yanking meters out. We just need to figure out what's there so we get started. So both agencies agree that this language isn't necessary, but we need to learn a lot more, and we're happy to come back into the committee and share what we learn. And if legal tweaks are necessary, we'll be happy to propose them.
Is there anything that's prohibiting you from doing either making new rules, like you have rule-making authority? You could create a rule or regulations around charging without legislation, I'm guessing.
Well, we really rely on the handbooks because those are the key to weights and measures is federal consistency. You don't want different standards in every state. So generally speaking, I think if we want to change the law, we'd rather do that by statute rather than by rule, just so that we're maintaining that standardization across the board. Yeah, I think it's a better way to go. But I think as an example, if we find that there is equipment out there right now that works, that's accurate, but it doesn't meet the standards, then it might be appropriate to come back in and ask this committee and the House committee to make some tweaks that allows the continued use of accurate equipment that maybe doesn't meet other standards that exist.
But I assume the standards don't deal with things like fees, penalties, appeals, those kind of things. They're not a NIST standard on how you would do an appeal process.
We have our own enforcement. Our enforcement regulations are pretty standard across the agency, just applied differently. And
whether it's a scale, a deli, or an electric charger, you would do it the same.
Or a dairy farm that's not meeting health standards. I mean, there are some differences, but generally speaking, we have broad enforcement authorities but we have a lot of discretion within those.
Right. Well, that's what I was saying. You already have the discretion. If there's some tweak that you would need to do to the appeals process for chargers that's different than a creamy stand, then you could do that already. You would need this section.
Yeah, and that's when I say we're education first. Like if we find something, we want voluntary compliance because that's the only way that things really work. So if we find a problem, our first almost always, unless it's an egregious intentional violation, our first step is almost always to say, look, you need to fix this. Please do.
All like scales that give you register a pound, but they only give you 3/4 of a pound.
Yes, right, yes.
Okay, well,
Okay, well,
where did this language come from then? Did AOT propose it?
AOT proposed it and
that's what I thought. So I thought that, or maybe it was early on, they were for it before they were against it.
I'm not sure exactly how that unfolded, but I did talk to Michelle Boomhauer about that, and they're now retracting it. I think they were just concerned about the rollout and how they're investing a lot of money as we want them to do. And I think, but in talking to Michelle Boomhauer, we agree this is something the agencies can work on internally. The report is not. We're already doing it, so rather than spending time writing a report, we'd rather come back to you and tell you what we're finding, and instead of spending time drafting a report, honestly.
Okay. Yeah. So, well, yeah, we're usually very supportive of not having you do reports on work. Okay.
I wonder if they.
Question, a separate topic, you're still on this.
No, I was just wondering to what extent maybe AOT was not aware of the level of detailed work that would automatically fall into place.
Because I talked to Michelle about it a little bit, and my understanding of the agency was thinking that there might be other stuff that's not in the NIST handbook, like on the appeals process, or I thought there's something. It sounds like the posting to the public is already covered, but there were some things that maybe we aren't in the NIST book that we want to address. And let's spend some time to think about it. But it sounds like they've been educated on that.
I feel very comfortable that right now we're on the same page and that we'll continue to collaborate and that we may well need some legal fixes and we'll be happy to propose those
So
together.
right now, you're not charging $100 fee on any meters the last year or 2 years ago, we gave the authority to do that.
You gave a third, $25 a plug, and we are prepared to move forward with that this spring and begin the licensing of the commercial devices.
Up to level 2.
Level 2, and again, this is only for commercial devices. Those that are offered as a public service with no fees don't come under our definition or umbrella of commercial. So these are only the devices that where charges will be made against.
So if it's a free station, they don't need to pay them.
No license fee, no test, no anything.
So you'll start collecting the fee in
This spring.
This spring. Like,
Yes, that's the weights and measures cycle.
We're
I
in the
believe
spring
it
now.
kicks into May. We're on the verge, and we just worked with the programmers for our
You can
licensing.
tell Mother Nature.
I know.
Feels like winter. That's been put in line for us to begin the process to license. And our licensing for weights and measures, the annual year starts in May.
And you'll be able to start testing them, because I thought I also heard that the equipment that you need to measure the kilowatt hours that you didn't have.
We placed the order officially 2 weeks ago for that piece of equipment. It's a $60,000 piece of equipment, and it comes with training and recalibration and traceability, and that order has been placed. So we should be able to start this year doing some tests and to see what we can find out there.
So how many sites do we have right now that would be subject to testing?
So we've,
Couple hundred.
yeah, we've,
Couple hundred?
well, I'm sorry.
I don't know how many, we have like 200 something.
But
charging
those that
stations.
charge, it's only those
Yeah,
that.
there's that are free.
It said there's many that are, I think if you go on the site, there's like 750 that are listed. A lot of those are non-commercial, and all of those are offered as a public service. And part of our job and part of the heavy lift is going out and defining what's commercial as opposed to non-commercial, and finding out who owns these and responsibility and track this back. And at the end of the day, if there's 750 listed, you might have 250 or 300 that are actually commercial at this point.
That are just level 2.
And is there a process when new ones are brought into the network and are gonna be charging to notify you?
Yes, we have a system in place with all weighing and measuring devices that require registration of service companies that do the installation and repair of this equipment.
So that as new ones come online, you would be notified as a matter of course.
Yes, and by the regulation, they have to notify us within 48 hours after it's commercially installed. And again, one of the challenges will be finding those installers, getting them registered, educating them on the requirements to let us know where they are and what they are.
And that's similar to what this language talked about, but that, as you said, you're doing it anyway, so we don't need to tell you to do it.
Yeah.
Senator Chitnick.
2 questions. One, I think you said that we might want to have additional requirements, and I'm not supportive of that. I like the direction that we're going in, but currently with electric charging stations, does it indicate how charged the car is? So if you're waiting to use the pump, can you see if that car is fully charged or not?
Some stations, it's nice, they do have a graphic that gives you a percentage bar, so you can see, oh, this person should be done pretty soon, they're at 75%, they're probably at 80, some of this, they start charging you more and it slows down, so people usually don't go to 80 or so, but some stations don't have a screen, so you can ask the person.
Or you could look on your car itself, because.
Well, on your car, but if it's another car, I think is the question. So
Oh, yeah.
if you pull up and you're like, gee, how long will I have to wait for this?
I hope that's part of the federal standard. I don't want Vermont to mandate that, but it seems to make sense to make sure you have that indicator on the station so that if you're
Right.
anxiously trying to get that plug. Second one, completely separate topic, but to the weights and measures, gentlemen. I find in Vermont, there's a great deal of variability on how large a large maple creamy is. Is there any standard that you have
Yes.
for what qualifies for height, volume, and ounces?
You do regulate creamy state.
Well, we have something that's related. We have small, large, medium, baby, we've looked into that, but that's just beyond us. But what I will say, we had a consumer complaint on creamies. Someone went into and bought a creamy and they're beside themselves. And the price was clearly marked. We do a lot of price verification inspections, and the price was really hard. Medium creamy, $2.25, and they were charged $3.50, and they went crazy, and they called us and emailed us and everything else. And I did follow up on them. I emailed and tried to call, and no response to the email, but they did leave I did get a voicemail. They were closed for the season.
I do agree with Senator Chin that the differences between the large, some of the large, like double extra large, and I'm not expecting it when
It's like measuring a slice of pie for God's
Well,
sake.
NIST should look at it. I think the deputy auditor needs to go back and
I will bring this forward.
We do have a maple creamy map, so maybe we should.
Oh,
yeah.
what's the average height off the cone?
Swirl.
Yeah.
And they're not selling it based on 3 ounces or 5
No,
ounces.
it's
If they
they're
were, then you would have.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a ready-to-eat food, and ready-to-eat foods are exempt from measurement or that type of thing. It's like a restaurant. You go in, you buy your meal. It's the meal. It's a ready-to-eat meal.
They do pay a fee for their creamy, each creamy machine.
The dairy division has a licensing program that they have for dairy machines.
Same with
Yes,
slushy
creamies.
machines, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think so, but I'm not the dairy expert. I know for creamies, definitely. Slushy may be a gray area, but
Okay,
EB would answer that better than I would.
wow.
Now you know.
No, you don't.
You just have to go around and then find which has the biggest,
Campaign season's coming on, and I do like creamies and regulate the caloric intake.
We could require them to list the calories.
or whether they use real maple syrup as opposed to a flavoring.
That's more important.
That is important, yes.
Wow, we are drifting away from transportation, driving.
But it's Vermont centric.
That's
We're
right.
talking about maple products and
Yes.
you're a producer
Yes. I am.
on a small scale.
Yeah.
We're gonna strike section 23.
I think we should, in light of.
Yeah, I would like to check in with the Agency of Transportation again, but it sounds like that's fine, so I'm sure we could strike that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Yeah, any other questions, weights, measures? Want to know anything about how they measure or weigh anything else?
Well,
Happy to share.
I want to know if the doctor's scales are accurate.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
My doctor scale is definitely.
Oh, my
Yeah.
I argued with them once, and then, oh, no. I said, you don't know who I am.
Or do you know?
And I don't like what I see.
Yeah.
We don't check those, but they have medical supply folks that go around and do periodic
Oh,
checking.
they do?
They do. It should be up to snuff. I've gone for a checkup and found them not starting on 0.
Fairbanks platform scale, they can, yeah, where you move it along.
There's still some being used commercially.
The old Fairbanks?
Yeah.
Oh, they're pretty accurate.
Oh, beautiful scale.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Arkansas just has one.
Yeah, that's my note.
A big Fairbanks platform. I got a platform that big.
Yeah.
No, it's for measuring grain.
I was down in NIST a month ago, Gaithersburg campus, and they do the ultimate calibration of 500,000 pound weights and beautiful facility. And the number one, I got to see the 1,000,000 weight, the 1,000,000 test weight. That was so interesting. Their claim to fame on that was it was used during the Apollo missions to calibrate the cranes, add scales on them because of the heavy rocketry and all of that. Fascinating to see. It's like 40 feet tall. It goes into a silo, stainless steel in segments. Fascinating. If you ever want to look at a Google 1,000,000 weight at NIST.
No.
Related to that, you talked about that the old Fairbanks scales and new technology, they are still using their old mechanical scale from the 1960s to do that calibration work because the measurement is so fine on it. They have knives and pivots and they can have a much finer resolution than the digital scales today. One of the reasons is no one in commerce has any need for the refinement of the digital scales today, but they did in the past. and those scales last.
Yeah, they were good. But they still make,
Banks, not like these.
no, but they're still not.
Yeah, but very small, I think, compared to what it
Yeah.
used to be. I mean, it used to sort of be a world product all over the world. I don't know where I picked, it was at an auction. It takes up a lot of room in your bathroom, I can
Well, thanks for coming in. That was very helpful and informative.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
anytime.
Thank you very much.
No committee, any other questions, comments? If not, we can adjourn and prepare for our.
Which goes to.
10:30 to 1, you're saying?